Hello there, I'm Tony Walker, as you probably know. I've created an exclusive PDF version of one of my most scary stories and most popular stories, My Niece Alison, and I've done it especially for people who sign up to my mailing list. This little video now will show you the process of me making it, and then I'll tell you about the inspiration for the story. I generally don't like talking about my own stories, but people always ask me. So I thought this video is really just for people who are going to sign up to my mailing list, and I would tell them about it. There's a link to the story in the notes below. When I say the notes, I mean the description of the video, as well as a link to join up to my mailing list. And if you do that, you'll get a copy of this this PDF that I'm going to show you me designing. So I hope you enjoyed the process. It might be interesting. I hope it is. And I'll see you after. I decided that people who signed up to the mailing list should get something. And then I thought, I'll tell you what's a popular story of mine, which is My Niece Alison, which obviously features a standing stone. There's been all this debate about AI art and, we shouldn't use it, etc., etc. But I can't draw, but I have got photographs. So these are some photographs that I took. They're not in Wales, they're in Scotland. They're up in, I think these are Callanish. They are the Callanish in the Outer Hebrides and the Isle of Lewis. I've got more stone circle shots than anybody. So these are just some of my megaliths. So these are from the Isle of Lewis Harris, so mainly Callanish. Then we skip, and these are actually from Orkney. This is the Ring of Brogar and the Stena stones. These are Pictish stones from near where my grandmother's family come from, actually, in Pictland. Then we jump again from Pictland to Stonehenge, and we're in Wiltshire, and this is Woodhenge, and here's my boy Jasper, and there's our Sheila, and Stonehenge, and then we're at Avebury, and then we're in Cumbria, and this is Long Meg. Those are the worn things, and this is Sunken Ness in South Cumbria. That's a Gosforth Viking Age stone. So more Avebury, more Stonehenge. This is the Clachmaben stone, or Clachmaben stone, Lochmaben stone as they call it, at in Dumfriesshire, just over the border from us. I think this is up on Tyrrell Fell. This is in Cumbria, that one there. So megaliths. The idea occurred to me. I've millions of, I've got the Rollright stones in Oxfordshire somewhere. I've got every single stone circle I've ever been to, which is a lot. So I thought I would create a nice little version of the story My Niece Alison, which of course is set in Wales. So this is Affinity Publisher, and I'm going to make a new file, A4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get those photographs from my library, which are my copyright. There we are. Oh, it's appeared. And I need to pull them onto another screen. So I'm going to do the master first. So this is the master that will be behind every page. I'm going to do 2, and that's going to be 1 page. Good sky. That's a good photograph, actually, Tony, if you don't mind me saying. Well, I don't mind you saying at all. And I want one that's leading away a little bit. So we'll have this one as well. Now, the big thing is, of course, they're going to be behind the text block, so you won't see all the detail. So in a sense, I'm just using them as window dressing. I might put a stroke on, a border on them. So if we do it a pixel black, I'll do the same with this one, just to give it a little definition. And then may drop down the opacity. Say opacity there 100%. Let's just drop out the opacity. Ooh, no, I like it fully opaque. So I'm gonna bleed the color out though. But I probably don't know how to do that in Affinity. So what I'll have to do is go over to Canva. So I've come into Canva because I want to just mess around with those images. I don't have Photoshop. Anyway, simple pimple. I'm just going to adjust this here. I don't want Magic Studio. I don't want anybody to do it for me. I know what I'm going to do. I want to take the saturation out and make it black and white, and I want to up the contrast, and actually probably want to put a bit more black in there. And what I'm going to simply do is I'm going to download this. Standing stone black and white 1, because I'm going to do another one. Bob is indeed your uncle. So this is black and white too, right? So you rejoin me when I've been working on the master, because it all got very tedious and I had some ideas that weren't very good ideas, but I thought at the time they were good ideas. Anyway, so I've created my master, which is the standing stone images behind, and it may be that I have to make them less obvious, but we'll see. 2 boxes here. This is going to be like a subtitle box. Really, you shouldn't have too many fonts on a page, so different kinds of fonts. So we'll do 2. We'll do 2 at all. A title type font, which is going to be Fell, Great Pie. My mother's maiden name was Fell, so I always like that one. So we'll make that 14 points. And I'm going to vertically center it in the box, okay? This one is also going to be Fell, because as I said, I'm only going to use 2 fonts, because I was told once that was what you should do. And it's 24. I think probably that's okay. So the next thing I need is another text box for the story itself. So I'm going to pull this slightly to the side so I don't lose it. I've already got the text of the story. As you see, that's coming Fell again, and I do actually quite like it. How easy is it to read though? So all of these really should be down in the layer there. But as you see, they're not moving, and I haven't got the time to work out why they're not moving. I'll spend my own time doing that. Is that very readable, or do I need to make the white a bit whiter? Go to these, and we'll make them 82. That's actually relatively opaque. But what actually I think is happening is that I need the coloured box to be a little millimetre or so bigger. Now I need to edit detached on this, so it's not letting me do it, maybe because I'm in the wrong tool. I am a div, like, you know, I am a total div. There you go, that works. Actually, I could do with it being on the left and right a tiny millimetre bigger than the text, just to be a slightly easier on the eye. Get out and stay out. These boxes hate me, you know. They think I'm a tyrant. They're going to be talking about me later on when I'm gone. I don't mean dead, I mean gone for a cup of coffee. Right, okay, so that should be better. Yes, it is. Now what we'll do is we'll add some pages. Badinga. Let's have 2. I think I'll need more than 2. Now what I need to do is flow the text though. So I need to go back to this one, and I need to get this little fella here, this link, and link it to there. Credo Cafe. I'll pull this into shape a bit later on, once I flow it, and just work out how many text boxes I need and how long the paper is. I need to put some page numbers in as well. Add some more pages. Flow to you, to you. You get the idea how it works. Just basically, I've done the basics, and now I just need to tidy it up. And I'll just get my flowing sorted, and then of course any extra pages, once I've worked out, I can actually just delete. So there we have it. I made this background a little bit more opaque to make it a bit easier to read. I got all the text stretched properly. I think I'm going to export this now as a PDF, and that is for you if you sign up to my mailing list. And then you get it free. So that was how I made the PDF, in case you're interested. If you weren't, you've obviously left by now. So I was going to say something about the story My Niece Alison, something about its inspiration, something about the references. And what you find is when you write stories, I think this is true for everybody who does it, it's like a potpourri. So you end up with a story that has a whole bunch of things thrown in it from your life, ideas, references, resonances that are not massively connected apart from in the single fact that they happen to you. My niece Alison. Did I ever have a niece Alison? No. Do I have any nieces? I do, but I've never met her. She lives in America. Emily. I've never met her. I probably never will now, but never mind. I've got a cousin called Alison. This story, funnily enough, is about cousins in some ways, or some of the inspirations about cousins. First of all, my cousin Alison, who lives in Gloucestershire, it isn't about her. She's not like this. This is not based on her at all. I just like the name. Alison's about the same age as me. But I did have a cousin. Now, you know, people's families are complex. So I was adopted. I'm illegitimate, and my biological father, Scottish, But and I met him later in life, but he went to America before I was born. Now we were supposed to go, and I'm not blaming him completely because my mother was one for bearing grudges, which is sadly a family trait. Luckily, I've escaped from that, and I don't bear grudges over long years towards institutions that have wronged me. Well, anyway, so the issue this is my adopted family. So my mother was my mother, but my biological mother married, and he, you know, to be fair to him, um, gave me a home and kept a roof over my head, and so I can't complain about that at all. The family he had, my uncle was an adopted uncle who I liked a lot, and he had a daughter. Okay, my cousin, who Alison is sort of based on. Now, I never thought that my cousin liked me very much. She was a strange girl. She had a sister who was very open, very friendly, got on very well with her. But this particular girl, I'm not going to name her name, she was always a bit odd. And at school, she was a couple of years younger than me, maybe a year younger than me. If I saw her at school, she wouldn't talk to me. And on the bus, or if I in town, it was only a small town, she wouldn't talk to me, or would be sort of very grudging about this. And at family dues, Christmas and these and various get-togethers, again, she was a bit like that. So I didn't think she liked me, but it wasn't just me. She was like that. She was like that with my brother as well, and people at school who knew said, there's something slightly odd about her. Anyway, my auntie died suddenly of a stroke, and my uncle was bereft really. And I think she was a good daughter to him. I'm not, saying anything like that. And she later went up to Edinburgh, and she inherited a lot of money from my uncle. My uncle was very prudent, and he'd been a lawyer, and she inherited the money, and she fell in love and had an affair with a married man. Apparently, I don't know if this is true, but it was very, her own marriage fell apart. I think her own marriage ended before the affair, and she lived in Morningside in Edinburgh, lived in a nice place, and she ended up killing herself, and that was very tragic. She was only in her early 30s at the time. I remember the funeral at the crematorium at Fairmile Head, and funny thing, I'll tell you a funny thing, two funny things. So I thought she didn't like me. I went up, and there was her flat, and there was my book on her table, as if she'd been reading it. And I thought, oh, goodness me. And another thing, it was a lot of her friends were there. She was young, And at the funeral get together, while she was lying in state, her flat was full. And at one point, I felt somebody move behind me in the way a woman would. Women, I don't know, men, you know this, but women will often touch you and or sometimes touch you, and they just in an innocent way, just and put their hands on your waist to get past, just like, excuse me. I felt a woman, a man wouldn't do that to me, go past, but there's nobody there, and it was real as real, and there was nobody there to have done that. So I kind of think it was her, and she at the end of it did quite like me. So that's a funny story. So my cousin is associated with death. Now I'm gonna talk about death, but then I'm gonna talk about some lighter things. So another little jokes. So yeah, death isn't a joke, obviously. And So when my dad died, my biological father died, my mother would go to the spiritualist church just once or twice. And I went with her. She was hoping for a message. We had some weird messages through. And so that was that question, to question what happens. You want to know what happens when you die, which was a real preoccupation of mine for many years. And I think that is the key question, that she has passed into that um, death place, the death realm, and is able to answer that question now, which is kind of terrifying, really. He wants to know, but he doesn't want to know. Our man. I guess the man is an avatar for myself. Let's think about the symbol. I think I'd also seen the film The Ring of the drenched girl coming out of the well, hence the well. Now, let's take the journey down. So he starts in Penrith and he goes to Wales and he drives down. Now, obviously, I did that drive. I lived in that part of Wales for quite a long time, and both early on in Aberystwyth when I was actually in the 2000, no, was it the 2001 census, 1991 census, and I had a job going round that part of mid Wales, Cwmsymlog, and all up in the mile in the hills, really empty sort of places, and finding the houses and going so. And there was a place called Pantagareg here, which actually means the hollow of the standing stone of the long stone, and that's a real place. And there is a house, probably dating from the it looks sort of 18th century, maybe earlier. I don't think there was a well there, but there was a standing stone, which was weird. And I would go there, and it was a young woman lived there because you had to read the census forms, which I think back now, I think what a tremendous intrusion that was. But at the time, it was just a job, and so I read it. It was extra money for me. I was also working at the same time in the Welsh dictionary in the Llyfrgell Genedlaethol Cymru in Aberystwyth, and that was a fantastic job. I loved that job, as you can imagine, working on a dictionary. But this was another job I had, the census job. So I was going around the hills collecting people, finding farmers who'd never been spoken to before. And because I spoke Welsh, that's one of the reasons I was sent there. But not everybody there was Welsh speaking. A lot of people were kind of refugees from the modern world. And this girl who lived in this cottage, Pantagareg here, she was like that, and she would not come out. She would only talk to me through the door. I suspect she had some mental health issues, and I had to slide things under the door. She'd slide them out again. And in the window there was a sticker, witches do it on broomsticks. So I thought, oh, she's probably a Wiccan of some kind. And that, I don't know more about her. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know who she is. She'd been born in Germany in the British forces there. So you put together stories. I do. Sheila tells me off for this, but I can't help it. I see somebody and immediately spin a story about, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I put it all together. But anyway, so that's real. I'm not saying she killed herself, but and there wasn't a well, but that Pantagareg here is, and she was quite a damaged young woman, and so I guess mentally that must have linked to my cousin. And then so slightly lighter. The big joke, of course, was if you look at the landscape, sheep, rain, very similar landscapes, very similar to people. I've just read a book by a guy called Glenn George called Golwg Newydd ar yr Hen Ogledd. It's in Welsh, obviously, and he's a Welshman who lives in Cumbria, and he says about how you walk across the border to Cumberland, it's like being in South Wales because of the attitudes of the people there. Now, am I saying that temperament and personality is carried by genetics? Yes, I do believe that. Yeah. So anyway, I don't. That isn't controversial comment for me. I just think it's obvious. So there was this big connection. So and people would say, why would you go to Wales? It's just like Cumbria. It's rain, sheep, back and beyond. And of course, I make that joke from Eros, the moving man. Why would he go on holiday to Cumbria? That's based actually. When I was working in Wales for the RSPB, we had a visitation from a not a supernatural one, from a Greek guy from the Royal Hellenic Ornithological Society. I later went out to them in Greece. That was a great bit of work. And so he came and he was lovely, and he said he really liked Britain, but he couldn't persuade his wife to come because the food's terrible, the climate's terrible, and the people have no history. Because of course, if you're a Greek, the Greeks are very chauvinistic about their history. Theirs is the only history that counts. I mean that no disrespect. I'm very fond of Greeks, but from my time they were fantastic people, and when I've worked with them, fantastic people. There isn't many people I don't like, to be honest. Anyway, so those are references. The Great Oak Cafe in Llanidloes. I don't know if it's still there. Was it there last time I was there? About 3, 4 years ago. I used to stop off. I did used to stop off there. I used to drive up and down Wales a lot, and I would stop off at the Great Oak Cafe for hummus. They had hummus before. They were hippies, you see, and so that's a real thing. That road, overtaking on that road between Llangurig, when you go over the top there, I was very, very familiar with that road. Used to drive that road a lot. Any other references. But you see how the story comes together as a melange. And why is it scary? Well, there are two things that make it scary, in my opinion. Three things. One is the classic ghost story isolation. So our man is isolated completely. He's in a foreign place. He doesn't speak the language. I mean, okay, he can get by. People speak English in Wales, but it's just that extra strangeness, and it's the terrible weather. It's a very isolated part of the world, and and then so the question is, where is this strange girl? So that's one element, which is classic Gothic. It's a classic Gothic stuff. The well is an interesting symbol. The ancientness of the stone. These aren't scary, but these are like dungeon dressing. If you play D&D, you'll know what I mean. And there's the thing that comes up the stairs is classic, 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 classic. I do this a lot in my stories. If you notice, something is coming for you. You hear it, you sense it, you're frightened. It works like voodoo. Honestly, it scares people. And then the final scary bit is that metaphysical question: what happens when you die? And the fact that the dead will come back. So when you have that question, what happens when you die? It's just a psychological, philosophical question that you ask. Fair enough. When the dead come back to tell you, that's the thing. Of course, there's Jung's famous seven sermons to the dead, septem sermones ad mortuos in Latin, and he wrote it in German though, and I think rather than Latin, and he said the dead have come back from Jerusalem where they did not find what they sought, which is a very deep thing to say. And so I think that was probably on my mind as well. When the dead come back, she comes back, but in this case, she knows what happens. And the whole issue is he's frightened that she will tell him. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the PDF. So remember, that PDF is for people who sign up to the mailing list only. It will be sent to you if you sign up. The link is in the video description. I can't put it as a link now because that privilege has been removed from me by YouTube. But if I ever get it back, I will. But at the moment, just click on that link, you get the PDF, and I can keep in touch with you.